Hello and welcome back. Happy Thursday. News for Victoria 3 time. We have both Dev Diary 83 and we also need to talk about the live stream for Voice of the People. If you haven't seen this, it's on Paradox Grand Strategies channel. You can feel free to click and find that now. I think I'll be able to put it in either the description or the comments if my memory's good, which it isn't, so but you know where to find it if you would like to view that instead, which is reasonable. The pacing is a little bit slow. They just kind of play the game. They play through a little bit as France. But from all this, we are going to be looking at a bunch of screenshots that I took for things that I think are notable, and so we'll talk about that after the Dev Diary, so you should be able to find that in the chapters, because I will be sorting out chapters. Okay, so let's jump into the Dev Diary, which is Dev Diary 83, Agitators and Exiles. We get this traditional hello again. We'll be talking about stuff, as we thought you would. As I teased in previous Dev Diary, agitators and populars, firebrands who lead political movements to support their ideological goals in your country. And so this is what we're going to be talking about. This is the main mechanic kind of this entire patch, which I think is actually very interesting. We see Lenin himself, big chat up here. He's loved. He's a charismatic, reckless firebrand, etc. But I think that this is going to actually make a big change in terms of a few things in terms of metagame. The biggest one being multiculturalism should be easier to go if you get a radical, except if you're not European. More on that later. It's going to be a huge buff to Europeans in terms of getting multiculturalism, but not for other countries. So we're going to talk about them a bit. We have over 60 historical agitators, which is going to be big fun for the people who like the historical stuff. I do believe you need to buy the pack to get them. Voice of the People will include over 60 historical agitators, but regardless of whether or not you own the immersion pack, you will see unscripted agitators emerge. There are 3 ways an agitator can appear in your country. So if you want all the historical guys, like if you want Chad Lenin, you got to buy the pack. If not, you will still get the mechanic. Okay, they appear randomly with frequency based on your country's literacy rate. That's interesting. And so maybe this makes a little bit of a strategy regarding literacy, but probably you just want to crank it up. They appear through scripted events. Okay, that seems reasonable enough. And exiled countries can be invited to your country as agitators. I imagine a lot of the AI will exile a lot of radicals, which actually is a good interest group, ideology to have. And so this is kind of how I think it's going to change a little bit of stuff. Okay, when agitators appear in your country, their ideology is determined both by the many factors that already influence which ideology characters receive, and also by whether or not they have laws to agitate for. So for example, and this is already true in the base game in terms of ideologies, is if you have a bunch of stuff that the interest group opposes in terms of laws, you're more likely to roll these types of political people. I think it might... I'm not 100% sure of the transparency of the mechanics. I know you have a higher chance of like rolling like a jingoist if you have a bunch of pacifist policies, for example. But I think that it should, this chance should only be in the case of people who are not in government, but that's kind of a bit of a separate thing, and that's a tangential discussion. And okay, for example, the feminist ideology supports women's suffrage, so if you already have this law, you would not get feminist agitators. And so this is just kind of an expansion of kind of a very subtle mechanic into a very explicit mechanic, which is great because for those of you who didn't know, like, it's easier to roll a feminist if you don't already have women's suffrage. It's like it's a bit of a head scratcher. This is more transparent. There's a character there, right? And so it's going to be more of a better experience from the player, both feeling in charge, but also there being characters involved. I think adds a bit of a level of immersion, you know, rather than just looking at some sort of vacant economic simulator, which I don't have a problem with, but for general attraction. Okay. Agitators are intended to be opponents of the status quo, fighting alongside the people for the change they want to see in the world. And so we see here, we have Enact Presidential Republic, and we see here much better, like, look at this. So there's a movement to enact Presidential Republic. There's a supporting interest group. We see that it's intelligentsia, industrialists. It's telling us how much is supporting or adding their support here, what their feeling is. We can look at supporting pops. We can look at supporting agitators. All of this way more transparent than before. So this is big, nice. Also, Presidential Republic in the Papal States. They could have gone for a meme screen for enacting like what is it, state atheism in the papal states, but they didn't go for the meme screen. Terrible. Okay, agitators always support political movement. And so this is something they talked a little bit in stream, but even once they pass the main thing, they're going to keep trying to pass stuff that's consistent with their ideology. So in this case, we have the radical, right? And so you might get multiculturalism, but then they're going to keep trying to pass a whole bunch of stuff, and so they're going to continue agitating. When an agitator arrives in a country, they will immediately look for an existent movement that they support, either because their personal ideology favors it over the current law that is in their category, or because their interest group wants it and it does not conflict with their personal ideology. So if you want to support like the trade unionists, you invite trade unionist guys. Okay. If there are no political movements that an agitator supports, they will instead create their own, rallying the people to their cause. Now, this seems to be the main reason why you would want political agitators, and this also will develop the metagame. It will be much easier to go Council Republic because you can invite Council Republic agitators, and it will be much easier to go multiculturalism because you just invite radicals. And so this is, I think that I did like a poll regarding like or not a poll, but like people asking for what type of tutorials they want to see, and a lot of people said, how do I get these ideologies? I think that once 1.3 comes around, this will not be much of a problem, and you will just use the invite method rather than, trying to pass laws that radicals hate just so you spawn a radical type of thing. Okay, regardless of whether the powers the B approve of their methods, when creating their own political movements, agitators will be heavily biased towards reforming whichever law in your country is most detestable to their personal ideology. For example, a nihilist agitator entering with state religion is very likely to create a movement in opposition to this law. This makes agitators more dangerous to the status quo than others. Radical agitators, for example, strongly desire a republican form of government, making them especially dangerous in monarchies. So you can expect them to get ejected fairly often. There was another point. They also whenever you form a new government, post-election. This is something they mentioned in the stream, but they can try and also create a movement for the new government if a new government gets installed, for putting together passing a law, or they'll demand a law gets passed, and if you say no, there's a penalty, something like this. This was covered in the last dev diary, but I thought I'd mention it again. We have also some events. So here we have this event, new event, Popular Outreach, that is tied to the agitator, Giuseppe, or however you pronounce his name, Mazzini, or however you pronounce it. And so this is fun. Through events, agitators will take an active role supporting revolutionary movements and influencing elections. And this little bit of flavor, I think, will also add, a bit more dynamism and soul to the game, because you can have a bit of variance between, I hope, a bit of variance between runs in regards to which agitators you get. Okay, between the free 1.3 update and the content exclusive to Voice of the People, we've written over 350 new events for Victoria 3. Many of these events are aimed at improving a variety of content you'll experience while your country is passing a law, having an election, or dealing with a brewing revolution. So this is the crux of the thing, and this is, of course, what agitators are influencing, right? They want to help pass laws, and then you have the election. We talked about just briefly how, new governments will force you to pass things, and then revolution. They've also changed how revolutions work. You can look at Dev Diary 82, or maybe it was 81 where they talk about it more, but all of this, is kind of where we are with the 1.3 update, which isn't necessarily what I think most needed change. I still think the thing that needs most change is, and I've said this for forever, is diplomatic plays are very opaque and they should be more transparent. But okay, let's continue on. Women's suffrage group will now emerge from agitators and POP's political movements rather than interest groups gaining the feminist ideology. This is interesting. So apparently maybe you can't roll the feminist ideology anymore? That's neat. Well, I mean, not... Yeah, you get what I mean. So... Now that we have agitators in game, I should just show you guys my copy of the second sex I'm reading right now. No, let's not do that. Okay, now that we have agitators in game, we've updated some existing content to make use of them, often in places where we were instead trying to rely on interest group leaders. So this seems to make sense with the feminism thing. In places where the content was much more thematically appropriate to popular movements rather than political elites, we shook things up a bit so that agitators get created and involved in or involved instead as well. For example, votes for women and Springtime of the People journal entries are now related to events make exclusive use of agitators. I think I butchered that sentence reading it, but so this is interesting. It also makes, like, thematically, this also makes more sense that you don't just randomly roll someone in government who just, like, hates the status quo. I hope they nuke the corn laws. That's the, like... I mean, you use it every time because it's just so good, but it's like, it's not, it feels so off theme to just randomly get a landowner that just, like, mega supports all the things the landowners hate. Okay. In 1.3, agitators will join political movements that can boil over into revolutions. In the future, no promises as to exactly when. We would like to overhaul nationalism secession systems to also give agitators a role in liberation movements. This is neat if you can, you know, send agitators and deal with agitators, like, on a more, like, macro, like, geopolitical, like, machination type of way. For this reason, many significant and interesting figures have might have been solid agitator candidates like Gandhi or Xiao Fuxian, however you pronounce this, apologies if I got it wrong, haven't been included in 1.3, and we can feel free to do it more just a little bit, as we feel we can do better. Yeah, whatever that sentence says, words. Okay, so you see here, this is like part of their user phase for exiled agitators that you can invite. There's Giuseppe, however you pronounce it. We have this industrialist feminist, it looks like. Was that a globalist? That's interesting if that's a globalist. But okay. Because that doesn't look like feminist. I don't see the feminist thing. That looks like maybe they're globalist, which is not currently an ideology. Or my brain's not working, I guess, maybe. So that's interesting if that's what this is. Exiles are countries... Exiles are characters with no nation who have been forcibly ejected from their new country and are seeking opportunities, blah, blah, blah. Countries have a soft limit of the number of agitators that can be active at once. They talked about this on stream. They said it was gated by... in 1836, you'll have 2 at the most, and then you'll be later, or this is if you're a GP, and then or else you'll have 1. Later on the game, society techs will unlock extra agitator slots, and so this will be nice. There are also some restrictions, and this is what I had kind of talked about at the very beginning, where this is the limiting factor. Devout agitators will always share your state religion. Makes sense. If you have state religion law, all exiles you invite must share your religion. Cool. You cannot invite exiles that are discriminated against in your country. It makes sense. This limits historically implausible scenarios where characters travel vast distances to become political figures in societies that would likely not accept them. If you have closed borders, you cannot invite anyone. But here is the really big one. You cannot invite exiles that share culture or with cultures that are discriminated against in your country. And this means, I'm guessing a lot of the really progressive political agitators, or a lot of the better ones, are going to be European. And so if you're not European, you might not be able to make use of this system, and so this is a significant, in terms of relative power, nerf to non-European countries, because it's going to limit your ability to use this mechanic to pass certain things, I think, because what political agitator are we supposed to invite to pass, like... Well, I mean, I guess it depends to what extent non-historical agitators get rolled in this sort of thing, but it seems to me like getting a radical, most of the people who will have the radical ideology that are historic will be, for example, from Europe, and this is maybe a Eurocentric kind of balance thing that maybe negatively affects non-European countries, or not necessarily negatively affects, but you get what I'm saying here, where it's more of a buff for European countries wanting to pass multiculturalism and Council Republic, which seem to be, in my mind, the 2 laws that you really, really benefit from agitators for. And so, okay. Here you see huge interface, right, where you can grant command, grant leadership, a lot of character interactions. Also, you can get a link to their wiki. This is what they were talking about on stream. Okay, so and this is kind of neat. It'll be neat to see if they expand this. They said they were a little bit leery about adding too many character interactions because they're not trying to make it CK3, but this is fun. Okay, Victor Hugo's Exile, blah blah blah, Channel Islands, blah blah blah, etc. This place instead, something Channel Islands. Okay. Just as you can invite exiles to countries, you can also send characters into exile. Just like with inviting exile, exiling a character also has some restrictions. If you have protected speech, you can't exile a character. Now, protected speech looks a little bit worse on this front. If the character is not an agitator, their interest group cannot be marginalized. If the character is not an agitator, their interest group cannot be marginalized in government or insurrectionary. If the character is not an agitator, their interest group cannot be marginalized in government or insurrectionary. So you can only exile people who are not in the government as long as they're not pissed at you, I guess, is what they're saying. That's kind of a weirdly formulated sentence. They probably should have broken that into multiple things. Just more bullet points. You can never exile your ruler or heir. Makes sense. Voluntary exile. You notice that these rules absolutely allow you to exile agitators belonging to interest groups that are part of your government. This is critical. Exiling characters not free. You will not be able to remove blah blah blah. You'll get extra radicals if you have rights of assembly. It's slightly fewer if you have censorship. I think it's cool that they're making more stuff tied to this type of thing. This law, the law of like free speech. I think that the free speech or the speech laws should be actually a lot more important, and I think there should be like a journalism mechanic, and that newspapers should be a good, and like all this type of stuff, and this seems to be a move in that direction, which is neat. An interesting quirk of the exiling characters is that if they have incredibly boring moderated ideology, they will inexplicably develop political opinions that are hostile to the government that exiled them. No idea why they do that. That's actually super neat. That's super cool. When I was skimming through this the first time, I didn't even read that sentence. So, okay. When a character is exiled, we will store their home country and use this with events such as above. So a repatriation is what they're talking about here. For the modders out there, this is accessible using the home country scope. You as the player can also use this for your nefarious purposes, as you can repatriate exiles to your rivals. Very satisfying to wait for an opportune moment of weakness and send a political agitator that you have safely harbored in your progressive republic back to your rival's alien monarchy to cause trouble. This will be really neat, I think. In the long term, I'm not sure with what I was seeing on stream and also like what they've discussed. I'm not sure to what extent this will like be meaningful, but like if it develops in terms of, I can see this getting like really really neat down the road. Okay, character interactions. They're about to talk about them. New way to interact with characters. Blah 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 blah. Full list of character interactions coming in 1.3 presented here. We've converted the grant and remove character interactions for rulers into character interactions, as well as retire command, blah, blah, blah. Royal marriages available for free with the 1.3 update. Kind of neat. I think that this will just be... in the stream, they seem to indicate that this was really minor type of thing, where it would just like increase relationships between two countries more than anything else, and you can't do it if you have an heir. Makes sense. Makes some sense. Owners of the Voice of the People can use the grant leadership interaction to promote an agitator to an interest group leader, which replaces their agitator role, which is neat, because you can kind of look to stock up your government with more people who you approve of, and it gives you more interaction and control. Owners of the Voice of the People can use the grant command interaction to promote an agitator to general, which does not replace their agitator role. Owners of Voice of the People can have their monarch abdicate the throne under certain circumstances, such as the monarch's advanced age. This will actually be spectacular in one specific case. There's one trait that's absolutely terrible to roll on anyone, and that is Bandit, because you decay infamy at like half the rate or something like this, and getting rid of a bandit leader is the like most important thing you could possibly do. It's one of the reasons I don't like presidential republic and I prefer parliamentary republic, because parliamentary republic, it's easier to just slot the guy out who and still maintain high legitimacy, but you just like absolutely cannot run a government with that if you are trying to do like low infamy play, which I generally do, which obviously isn't necessarily optimal, but I think that it's a much better game experience. But okay, though we've previously said that exile character, invite exile, and repatriate exile are exclusive to owners of Voice of the People, this is something we have re-examined following the community discussions on the topic. After some internal discussions in the team, we have decided that these interactions are too much core part of the agitators mechanic, and we will make them part of the free update. Did they say that up there? I can't remember. Okay. Owners of Voice of the People will have access to some France-exclusive interactions, feed baguette, related to the struggle between different houses. Oh, that doesn't sound like baguette. We'll talk about this more next week, and so I'm guessing next week's Dev Diary will be mostly flavor, and, you know, we have this, which to me, as someone who doesn't mod, this means basically nothing. I'm not going to try and make sense of it. If you would, you're more than welcome to pause and try, or go to this and try. Character interactions are extremely moddable. This is a super cool thing, and use the same scripting norms that we use in journal entries, etc. You can create your own interactions, define when an interaction is visible, the circumstances of its use, the effects, cooldown, AI weighting, etc. If, for instance, you want a character interaction that allows you to target a politician for assassination, it would be relatively easy to write some script that allows you to select the appropriate target for your devious machinations. So this is really neat, and that's all you have for today. Blah, blah, blah. Except we have a little bit more. So the stream was yesterday. You can feel free to check it out. And, you know, it's just this intro. I'll just play the intro, and then we'll take a look at some screens. We notably do have the different looking... Hopefully that's not too loud. But we have the different looking stuff. I always wanted a French UI theme. So we got the Voice of the People. Or, well, let's... There we go. May 22nd is the release date, for those of you who didn't know. But let's jump into our second scene, where we're just going to look at, you know, some of these image slides. And there's stuff I wanted to discuss. This one looks like it didn't get clipped right. But let's take a look. I'm going to just bring this over, and we're going to talk about it a little bit here. But this is a big one. So in the production tab... Now it appears that you get to see all of these state modifiers, which is tremendous. Very, very big, nice. Let's actually jump back to this one and try and figure out what I was trying to be about. I think it's the monarchist type of thing, and enact census suffrage is part of a political movement. I'm not sure exactly what I was on about here. Oh, you know what? This is probably way taller than... Nope. Okay. I was concerned that the image might have been way taller, but I guess I just grabbed a weird screen. Let's make sure that my video is showing. Okay. And so here we have, of course, very cool that we are getting access to a user interface that is more sensitive to the fact that certain states you want to build certain things in. This is big, nice. It's also going to just generally improves, you know, quality. Here we have just a quick look at kind of something that you've already seen, but we do have a much better user interface as far as overview of politics goes coming in, and I'm pretty happy about this. You'll be able to see the political movements, you'll be able to see the agitators. As we showed earlier in the dev diary, the political movements, you know, are going to be more transparent. You can also, in the middle here, we have the loyalists and radicals section, which is telling you how many loyalists and how many radicals you have from each interest group, and I believe you can hover the information and get more information. It also shows you as a share of your overall population, and this like presentation of information is just way better than before. And this stuff is maybe not necessarily for like an advanced player. This stuff may not necessarily be like the biggest deal in the world, but for newer players, which I think are important to you know, keep in mind for Victoria 3, because it's going to be a driver of how much development and attention the game gets. I think that this is tremendous, and it will make parsing through the information a lot easier, even for advanced players as well. But like for advanced players, it's more, once you know what you need to do at certain points, it's having the exact information I think is less important, but this will help you have better information at a glance. This is one I was really happy and excited about. This user, it shows you loyalists and radicals over time in one single thing, and it also shows them, you know, obviously the loyalists are going to be in green and the radicals are in red here. It's color coded. Hopefully they have a colorblind option for the people who are, you know, can't see the difference between red and green, because this seems kind of important, but this is a nice little tweak that makes it easier for you to kind of just look at the information regarding radicals and loyalists. Obviously you can tell like right now, but this is a nice adjustment. Let's take a look. So Sardinia Piedmont is not the attention here. Instead, we have, the land reforms, the tenant farmers. So we have two more sections for laws. And this is what we're talking about here. This has been covered, I think, 2 diaries ago a little bit, but I just wanted to take the screen. We see in the human rights section, there's the workers' rights, and it's just no workers' rights, so that's not where serfdom's at. Instead, serfdom's is under tenant farmers, or this is what we noticed on stream. So we have both the tenant farmers type law and the homesteading type law. I'm uncertain all the categories of these, but these are dealing with ownership of the rural areas, which is actually going to be a huge deal. And it seems that you can actually relatively early give homesteading, which is going to give rural folk political strength. And so there might be some sort of strategy with forgoing, commercialized agriculture, which would be like capitalist owned, which would contribute more to the investment pool in favor of something that is trying to cake up the rural folk. I don't think that would be good. But it would be something that would be interesting and also a powerful. The rural folk IG is actually pretty good, and so if you could get them both happy and powerful, their bonuses are quite nice. Especially like a very early game, the like logging bonus would just be absolutely nuts because logging camps are the best thing you could build at the very beginning. And so this is interesting to me, and I thought it was just worth pointing out that there's a few new sections. And okay, let's continue on. So here we were taking a look at enacting census suffrage, and this is was featured in the dev diary, but it's now a lot more transparent in regards to who is driving the driving force really behind these political movements. You notice there are 2 radicals in here, I'm not sure if it's the 2 radicals or the 1 radical. It looks like 2 different radicals that are supporting the law. I'm not sure if these are agitators or if they're a combination of agitator and someone who is in government or this sort of thing. But it is a lot more transparent in terms of what's going on, and also I think it will just give people a better feel of connection to the game. So this is nice. Here we have just a little bit of taking a look at better menu. I clipped all these screens before I saw the dev diary, or before the dev diary was released. I was planning on doing it this morning, but of course we added just at the end of the dev diary here. But this one's interesting. You notably can invite people. You can get colonial exploitation. It will tell you the first law that they try and pass, but then they'll keep trying to pass stuff. So if you invite this jingoist, they'll go for total mobilization or whatever it is after they pass colonial exploitation. But or this is what they were saying on stream, but it is interesting. Next up, we have just taking another clip of the same thing because I thought was a little bit important, or I think that the big emphasis here is that there has been a sort of weird metagame where getting multiculturalism is extremely difficult in 1.2 if you don't abuse the Path to Liberalism event, which you should. And now after 1.3, you should be able to get a radical fairly easy. The radical ideology, which you can see Massimo de Azeglio, however you pronounce this, he is of the radical ideology, and so he will support multiculturalism. And so the metagame regarding the Path to Liberalism event chain, it's no longer you intentionally delay getting it until after you have the human rights law, so you can pass multiculturalism, and instead you can go census suffrage or universal suffrage earlier, which is going to allow you to get a powerful trade unionist interest group, which is quite strong. And so I think the metagame will get shaken up a little bit in regards to how I think the game should be best played, by the fact that you perhaps more consistently get radicals. But as we discussed earlier when we were talking about the dev diary, this might not be the case in countries that are non-European if all the radicals roll in European areas. So we'll see how that shakes out. Okay, here we have a little bit of, so I think it was 2 dev diaries ago, they talked about it. Law passes are again going to be, you're going to now need to effectively pass the law 3 times. I assume the law passing rate is 3 times as fast. And so what you are going to do is this is going to smooth out overall. There are 3 stages. Right now they're in referral. Underneath it's a little bit hard to read. I can't see what it's in, but you have to pass it. You have to effectively pass it 3 times in order to fully pass the law. It's like referral. What is that? I can't even read it. Something and then voting. But this will, because you have to get through it 3 times, it will be, you won't, it's just a lot more smooth. If it's going 3 times as fast, this means like if you have a 95% chance, you'll still consistently pass it really, really, really quick, and it won't just be like feels bad, man, when you roll that 5%. And similarly, you can't just luck sack pass something that's like 5% super easy if you just get lucky. And overall, the law enactment chance, they didn't talk about it much on stream. They didn't talk about it really in the dev diary, but this in this dev diary, I think a couple ones ago, maybe it was 81, maybe 82, they talked about it. But this is just a reflection of this. Also, you notice down to the left, it's a lot more transparent that you're passing wealth voting in regards to UI. We're trying to pass wealth voting or move off of wealth voting to census suffrage, which I think is big ups. So like this is nice. And finally, we have our last image here, which is you can now see the previous election results in the UI, and of course we have some dashing PDX, employees. But this is the main thing I wanted to talk about, is being able to see the previous election results is pretty nice, because you can compare, how it's looking to this election, as well as just be reminded of how these election results are contributing to Clout, or sorry, not Clout, to legitimacy. And so I thought I would just come in here and talk about that. If you like this video, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, do the YouTube algorithm stuff. And other than that, have a good day.